There's no one-size-fits-all approach to creating a successful fundraising strategy and plan.
People are nervous, right? It's a big deal. We're raising $10 million, even if we're raising $1 or $3 million, depending on the size of the org.
Major gift fundraising is not deadline driven. It really is probably the only type of fundraising, along with planned giving, that is not deadline driven.
AI comes on the scene that's affordable, accessible, that can provide insights and personalization at scale.
That's the first core element of this fundraising engine or funnel, is making sure that the top of your funnel, the beginning of your fundraising process, you are in front of the right people.
What do the people we serve need? And how do we open the door to help them get there?
What happens a lot of times is we get this discomfort or this fear, and our brain tells our body to stop.
We can acquire donors and we can automate everything. And that's where I worry, at least personally, around the perils of AI, that it would remove humans from the interaction.
This is the Intentional Fundraiser Podcast.
Welcome to the Intentional Fundraiser Podcast. Today we're talking about the use of artificial intelligence in fundraising with an incredible thought leader, Nathan Chappell. Nathan is the co-author of a new book called Nonprofit AI, a comprehensive guide to implementing artificial intelligence for good, which was just released in May. Here it is.
There it is. That's your own special edition.
It is my own special edition, which is such a cool thing for you, the two of you, to do. So I have two copies of this. I have one upstairs and one downstairs, because you never know when you're going to need it.
Right.
As if you don't know who Nathan is, let me introduce Nathan. So Nathan is obviously the co-author of this book. He's a globally recognized thought leader at the intersection of AI and philanthropy, with over 2 decades in nonprofit leadership, including steering complex billion-dollar fundraising campaigns. He serves as the chief AI officer at Virtuous, the responsive fundraising platform. He's, as I said, co-author of not only Fundraising AI, but also co-author of the award-winning book, The Generosity Crisis. And Nathan, this is actually your second visit to the Intentional Fundraiser Podcast.
It's great to be back.
Yeah, it's great to have you back. There's only a handful of people that have been on twice. So we feel doubly fortunate. Nathan is a champion for ethical, equitable, and responsible deployment of AI in the social sector. He's also a prolific international speaker, delivering the first TEDx talk on AI and generosity way back in 2018. Most of us were not even, we weren't talking about AI at all. And now it seems, Nathan, that you're keynoting conferences all around the world. But it was Geneva earlier this week?
Yeah. I was in Geneva earlier. Yeah, it's been a wild ride.
No doubt. You know, Nathan's thought leadership has appeared in Fast Company, NPR, Forbes, AHP, the Chronicle of Philanthropy, and, just so much more. All of that to say that Nathan is the GOAT of nonprofit AI in the nonprofit sector. And, I think if Nathan and I were going to describe you in just a couple of phrases, it would be a big brain with an even bigger heart.
Oh, that's so sweet.
It's true.
That's very sweet.
A big heart for the sector and the people who work in it. So,
and that wasn't even ChatGPT. That was amazing. Well, thank you for that. Yeah, and I reflect back. I mean, it is kind of nuts how early I started talking, not even about AI. So that was in 2017, but in 2018 got really excited about talking about responsible AI and what that meant. And frankly, people really didn't understand at all what I was talking about. So I went for many years being totally misunderstood or outcast, because it was like, Nathan, people really thought that AI and generosity had nothing to do with each other. And even, in fact, putting those words in the same sentence was just kind of desecrating our sector. And, that TEDx you remind me of, in 2018 was AI and the Future of Generosity, which is basically saying that we can solve for things that have never been solvable before, using machine learning to really understand not just, how to send more mail, but really to understand people at that more intimate level. So yeah, it's been wild. And then just to see how AI has advanced so much since then, it's not even remotely the same. And the scale and the pace just continue to increase and increase.
honestly, I will tell you, even as someone who's very dedicated to keeping pace, and it's hard. It's changing so quickly.
It's impossible. I spend a lot of time every week. I have GPT, tasks that basically send me information. I use the magazine, The Information, which is called The Information, which somehow they get all the best information from Twitter before it even comes on Twitter. I have all these different ways of getting latest data, but what you respond to, what you read, what you, just allow is just, it's so much, it's so overwhelming. So, I think you find a few people out there that you can tolerate, enough, that seem to be right often enough that you follow. And so that's what I do. There's several people that I follow, and I know if they're posting about it or talking about it, that, there's something there, but it is just absolutely complete overwhelm.
Yeah. Well, I will say that you and Scott Rosenkrantz, your podcast, Fundraising AI podcast, is one of the go-to resources that I listen to habitually.
Oh my gosh.
To try and keep pace.
You're a glutton for punishment. It's so raw. And to be honest, I wish I listened to other podcasts for the Center for Humane Technology or others that are just so polished. And then at the end credit, they have 6 people that are working on that podcast, and we have no one. So, the reality is that we were talking every week about the stuff anyway. So we just decided to hit record, about, I think we're on episode 60-ish something, but it's been encouraging. For a long time you do these things, and I'm sure you went through this, but you don't know if anyone's listening because it's just it feels really one-dimensional. And then all of a sudden you start little glimpses of things that encourage you. Someone posts something about it, or I had a chief development officer who was very anti everything AI. In fact, I was doing a webinar, and in the chat, she had basically come back in the chat and just said, none of this is for our sector. And she actually went on vacation. For whatever reason, she was annoyed by it enough. She ended up listening to all the episodes, and it was 40 at the time. Comes back. She's one of the champions in the country right now for creating a culture of curiosity within her team. And it's just, so when you hear those stories, then it encourages you to do a few more episodes. Yeah, and then go through the slump again of nobody listens. But at the end of it, I'm sure you have a lot of fun with yours. It's fun, right? You get to talk about things that you care about, and really not a matter of whether people agree with you or even listen. It's an opportunity to use your brain.
Yeah, absolutely. You just sharing that story it's just so, it brings me to that cliche, overnight success, right? And then you hear about a singer, an artist, whomever, right. It was yes, overnight plus 20 years.
Exactly. Oh yeah, no, for sure. It's a lot based on intuition and experience. And for me, I started out as a technologist, started and sold 2 tech companies early, and then got into nonprofit on accident in the year 2000. So then I spent 2 decades leading nonprofit organizations, but the tech part never left me. And so, a lot of it is just the natural, allowing the universe to kind of guide your path. And then, if you're, willing to sit and rest with what are the dots in my life that are connected, and how do I use those dots to amplify ideas? That's all you have to do. That's nothing novel or special. It's just that, you have a lot of experiences in your life. And if you can connect the dots between a few of them, then, I think magical things can happen.
I love that we're talking about technology and intuition and magic and being heart-centered, because it really is the success ahead of us. The way to maximize life is by blending the two of them together, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in all truth, right now, I spend a lot more time thinking, and I shared this on a podcast the other day. So I have a no phone zone in my house where if I don't, I'm completely consumed with all things digital. I just, as soon as I step in front of my computer, it's hundreds of emails and that come in overnight, and Slack messages and all these things. And the fear is that we just kind of swipe our life away, and you just one Instagram post at a time or one email at a time. And then, that days can come and go. And then you're what did I do? And I find myself over the last year really wrestling with that, and got to the point where I moved. Like, I moved from California to Tennessee, got some chickens because that's what you do. I have a tractor being delivered today. And
Oh my
so,
gosh.
finding, boundaries and in ways for me to like really tie into like what's human. And to the point where like even this last week, I'm like, you know what? I travel so much. Why don't I just host a meal, like no agenda, just a meal with like extraordinary people? And so I just planned one for Tennessee, one for New York, one for San Antonio. So I'm like, I'm there. And I think I miss community. And because in our just this highly transactional life and digital life, it's great, but it's not the same as breaking bread. And so, yeah, I think we're all trying to find these ways to just stay grounded. And, I think as AI continues to become more infused with our everyday everything, that we will have to, consciously and proactively, create community around us that's like really authentic and meaningful.
I love that. Well, Nathan, your book highlights a lot of ways that fundraisers can responsibly use and leverage AI. I'm curious if you were sitting in a fundraising department today, what's the first area that you'd apply AI?
Yeah. That's a really interesting question because it's changed. I would say my answer has completely changed in the last 7 years since I started working in AI. Even 2 years ago, I would have given you a different answer. So, and going back, so I was in a fundraising role when our CEO came to us and said, just as a very CEO-ish kind of thing to do is say, you need to increase, revenue by 25%. And, that's just a CEO of a hospital. I mean, he pays everybody's paychecks and all these things. So you're like, okay, I'm paying attention. But then there was a disclaimer that we couldn't hire more people. And so increase fundraising revenue by 25%, but you can't hire more people. That is a really pivotal moment for me because it made me rethink everything. And that's the kind of moment that something is so big and audacious, like the big, hairy, audacious goal, that anything that you've done before won't work. Like incremental change won't work with an exponential, problem. And so I really took a hard look at our fundraising practices at the time to recognize like we were doing things largely just because like throwing so much spaghetti on the wall, just because we'd always done it that way. And it was a very incremental type of business. So we could raise 1 or 2% more money or 3% more money, 6% if we were like wild, but not 25%. And, I realized that it didn't matter when I was like auditing all of the different practices. It didn't matter if we emailed more or mailed more, couldn't hire more people, so we couldn't take more people to lunch. That would have worked if we just done that at scale. But it didn't matter if we did more of those things if it wasn't better. And so when it came down to it, like when I looked at like the millions of dollars that we were spending on like direct mail and direct response work, that it was directionless. It wasn't specific. So that's when I really got into this idea. Like it didn't matter how much you ask for, when you ask, or for what purpose and what way, if it's not the right person to begin with. So for the last 7, 8 years, I mean, and I'm still like huge believer in what's called predictive AI. It's machine learning and deep learning, but predictive AI takes a lot of data and it makes sense of it. It almost ratifies your intuition in a way because you have all these data points and you're like, I feel like a good donor kind of looks like that, but I don't know why, and it's because there's just a lot of math behind it and you can't compute it all at scale. And so predictive AI, and obviously launched 2 companies doing this and was really the only answer. I would have said, if you want to start with AI, what do you do? It's like, well, then you need to understand your audience. And to be honest, the answer to your question is probably bifurcated by, are you very large and like bureaucratic and you have lots of resources, then do predictive AI first. But if you're not and you're small or mid-size and scrappy organization, absolutely use generative AI and then just get really curious. I think in either case, I've seen organizations succeed and fail in like wild ways, like either really be successful or totally fail in any kind of AI adoption, no matter if it's generative or predictive, if they think about it as a tool and not a way that they think or the way that they operate. And so I've become absolutely convinced that it doesn't matter where you start if you're not starting with a mindset around curiosity, if you're not starting with a mindset of openness, of like, let me reimagine what's possible. So I know that doesn't directly answer your question. I love telling people find a very low stakes but high yield problem, something that's just irritating to your organization, something that you don't like to do, that nobody likes to do. They don't wake up in the morning thinking, I want to do that thing. Find those things and then solve those problems with whatever type of AI you need, and then work outward from there. Otherwise, in our world, we see this, and I think on a fundraising AI advisory council, I forgot who shared this, but it was that AI becomes a tool without a problem. Don't let it be a tool without a problem. Find the problem first, and then talk to all the people around you on which tool can help you solve that problem, and then work outward from there.
Mm-hmm. I love that advice because I feel like it's those pain points that get people excited.
Yeah.
Right? Like, oh, maybe this is really something we should embrace. Maybe we should figure out how to implement this and where and how to scale. What are our other problems that this could potentially help bring solutions to?
Yeah, I think truly the biggest limitation to the adoption of AI for the nonprofit sector is that the pain is not great enough. And I would argue that it is. I wrote my entire first book around this idea that it is, that we can't ignore a lot of the transactional nature of our practices, and the fact if your organization's raising more money from less people, then the pain is great enough, right? So if you're continuously, finding yourself with fewer and fewer donors, then you need to rethink what you're doing. And so, have true, real conversations around like what's working, what's not working, and then isolate those things, and then figure it out which type of AI is really good for that. And the best part is AI is there to help you figure that out. You don't have to have it all figured out. You can use ChatGPT or Gemini or Claude and say, there's this really irritating thing that we don't know how to solve it. We don't even know how to define it. Can you help guide me, through this? And then you'll actually help me figure out how to solve it.
Mm-hmm. And you make me wonder too, is it that the pain's not great enough, or is the problem that we've just become so accustomed, so familiar with pain?
Well, that's pretty provocative. That one should go on a bumper sticker. It really is. It's hard, right? For a lot of us that have been in the sector for a long time, that care deeply about the sector. I understand the scarcity mindset because I was, a director. And as a director, I was accountable to my board for cost per dollar raised, and, having the lowest cost per dollar raised because your board wants you to be efficient really, by definition, doesn't allow you to be innovative. And so I think to your point, that is part of just become accustomed to the pain. And the pain is a result of to be honest, this sounds horrible, but a broken business. And I don't believe that board members intentionally at all come to an organization and say, hey, I want to do harm to this organization. That doesn't happen. But they don't know that by driving efficiency above everything, or revenue above relationships, at any cost, is what really causes a lot of that pain. And then I think, where a lot of nonprofit practitioners are like, look, I totally get you. And especially with my first book, I get you, I feel it. But at the end of the day, I get paid to, I only keep my job if I fill the leaky bucket. And so that's really hard. It becomes a vicious cycle.
And then I think one of the challenges with boards and executive leadership is because they care so much, they oftentimes can be risk averse, right? Like, I cannot do harm to this organization I love so much. And having grown up as a fundraiser in really mostly children's mental health, which is heavily compliant, HIPAA, right? They're hardwired to be risk averse, which of course is like a big wet blanket on innovation, on risk taking. Kind of drives me to the next question. And that is, you said if you're a larger, maybe more bureaucratic kind of organization, maybe predictive AI is the place to start. And yet I'm finding that some of my larger health systems and some of my university clients, leadership is risk averse. They're already focusing on so many challenges like funding cuts out of the new administration.
Right.
And they don't want to let us go as fundraisers, to let us loose on AI without some policies and regulation. And yet they're not putting intention into developing those responsible and beneficial policies to guide the implementation. What do you say to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it comes with the false notion that innovation and responsibility are mutually exclusive, and they are not, right? I mean, at the end of the day, you can have both, but it's where you start. And so I get called into a lot of organizations to be like, look, I know people are using AI. I know it's part of our future, but I can't sleep at night because I don't even know where to start. I don't know. We have all these shadow AI systems. And by the way, like when I've interviewed lots of organizations and the practitioners within, even if they don't have an approved policy or approved tools, about 75 or 80% of people are using shadow AI, underneath their desk. And with that, actually, when I've actually spent time interviewing those individuals, they have a tremendous amount of fear of doing harm to the organization or getting fired if they're found out. And so it's just like really vicious cycle. So then they're not telling anyone and they're assuming that the leader is not paying attention. So finally we connect the dots to the leader and the leader's like, oh my gosh, like I don't want anyone to ever feel that they can't experiment, but I just don't know where to start. Like we need to make sure that we're being smart when we do this. And so, I started focusing on responsible AI in around 2018, and it was really the understanding in predictive AI that if you had predictive AI, like these really sophisticated models that were essentially, providing guidance on like who you should ask for money, and the data was super biased, that you're going to have more biased data. And we, perpetuate this really, bad notion that philanthropy is a rich white man's sport or hobby. And so that was my concern. And that's why we really started talking about needing a governance policy around that. Now, it turns out, like we thought at the time, like AI was hard to understand. It's crazy because like predictive AI is like really easy to understand. Like you can actually look at the math behind it. There's like 1,000 calculations per person, but you can look at like where, the top like 90% of the calculations, like what data is it using to derive an answer? And you're like, oh yeah, that's like super biased. Like it's actually like using gender. Like we never intended that. Let's take that out. And, and that kind of thing is super easy. Now, generative is very, very hard because these tools, generative models have been built by collecting the world's data, which includes lots of, weird stuff and bad actors and all that. And just in total aggregate, there's a lot of good things there, but there's also a lot of weird things there. And you really can't audit it in the same way. So that the only answer there is to have an AI governance policy that says like, we need to be smart about how we're using this. We need to use approved tools that we as an organization believe in, and that you should, never put anything in a model unless you're sure that it is private or secure. And so you're kind of like, instead of proactively stopping bad things from happening, you're essentially like mitigating the chance that something bad might happen by just putting a few safeguards, and so it's a more reactive type of governance. But it all starts with really an organization taking a moment, and it's not hard. It's so easy. We're going to do a live demo of building an AI governance policy at this Fundraising AI Summit this year, because it's just like so easy. It could take a half an hour. It starts with having that and then distributing it through your organization so that everyone recognizes like AI is a part of our future. A leader needs to say AI is a part of our future. Like there's no success without it. We want to amplify you, not replace you, but amplify your work, amplify our mission. And to do that collectively, we need to be smart about how we do this. And here are some essentially ground rules that are aligned with the values of our organization. Once you have that, I think then you can start really kind of picking apart which are the, what are the problems that we really want to solve, and bring together, a variety of different people around those problems from different walks of life or in different, perspectives to help you solve them.
So great. And of course, for our listeners, we're going to be linking in the show notes where you can go and register for the Fundraising AI Global Summit that's coming up this fall, as well as a link to a governance policy that has been, you can download for free from the Fundraising AI website. So those are just some great free resources available to all of us.
Yeah. I feel like if you get started there, you're in a much better position to be proactive about what you want to achieve versus just always feeling like, I hope I don't get caught. I hope things don't change. So, that's your first proactive step, is to have AI governance and And then, I think after that, it's, really around culture. It's not around spending more money faster than anyone else. It's about creating a culture of curiosity and being able and willing and almost habitually ask what if. Like, what if that the way we've always done things is not the best way? Or what if there was a better way to do something? And being willing to do that, I think that actually is where I see most organizations really excel versus those that just kind of get stuck because they keep on doing the same things over and over again. And, unfortunately, a lot of those things don't work.
So a culture of curiosity. And from a leadership perspective, I think that also implies a culture where it's okay to take measured risks, and to sometimes fail, and to celebrate. Okay, that was a mistake. What did we learn from it? What can we apply? Right?
Yeah. Yeah. That's where our sector is so different, right? Because we focus on cost per dollar raise, which disincentivizes innovation. I spoke at John Deere a couple of years ago now, and about the generosity crisis. And they, this is a 100-year-old tractor company that last year spent $1.6 billion in research and development. And you're like, it's a tractor. And so, it still moves dirt, but it's doing it in new and novel ways. And so, yeah, I think really creating a place for experimentation and, allowing for people to ask questions. But this is different. Like, I spent 20 years leading nonprofits. I did not reward question askers. Like, I thought they were annoying. Like, the fundraiser that was just like really curious and wanted to ask a lot of questions. I'm like literally words I would use, like, focus on your own paper. Focus on your KPIs. You'll keep your job. Everything will be fine. Just stay super focused in your narrow little lane and then stop asking questions. Now, some people ask questions just to ask questions and they're super annoying. So, like, get rid of those people. But the average person, I think we've disincentivized question asking by keeping people confined to their box. And the person I would hire today, completely different than the person I would hire in the past. I would hire the curious generalist all day long, rather than the person that has 20 years experience doing one single job. And that, for most of my career, was the opposite. It was always like, find that person who's like had all the right credentials, doing that one job at all the right places. Now I'm like, I want the person who just is going to question everything, and not just for the sake of questioning, but like question everything and to experiment and try and color outside the lines and to fail and to learn from those failures and to move on.
Times have changed for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we know fundraising is all about relationships and trust. So talk to us about the role that transparency and consent with our donors when we're using AI tools.
All right.
Where are the lines between being very transparent about that with our donors and even in engaging them to get their consent?
Yeah. That's such a loaded question too. So thanks for that. And it's going to look different for every organization and the type of fundraising that they're doing. And, whether it is a more of a transactional type of fundraising where it's like, say, an association that is just like a membership association versus, major gift, fundraising in a hospital. But as you know, Chiri and Koshi and I were interested in this. And it was actually a year ago this month, I think, that he and I were like randomly in the middle of a street and there was no cars going by. So we just stopped.
That's good.
We just stopped. We were just walking and this like hit us both to the point that we both stopped in the middle of the street. I can like picture this like it was yesterday. And we're like, we've made all these assumptions about how to use AI within our organizations. And we've just gone full bore and doing all these things. But who's asked the donors? Like, what do donors actually think? And we were like, and it was like the Willy Wonka, if you've seen the new movie, like, like double, And so Chirian's like so brilliant and a doer. So it's not just for the sake of like asking questions, but he gets stuff done. And we keep on talking. And like a week later, he's like, I've got a survey. I did a survey, and he's a big Claude user, and he has this process of basically we paid for 1,006 donors. The requirement was they had to be donors to an organization in the last 12 months. And in the US. And it was a series of questions on like, what are your perceptions or your expectations of a nonprofit using AI? And that full report we can give you in the show notes. Actually, you can download it at fundraising.ai now in the resources section, and it will go to Chirian's website. But it was interesting because donors were actually very in favor of nonprofits using AI, but it was a little surprising in which way. It wasn't about like, help me understand your mission in a more personalized way. They wanted, mainly the donors that responded said that they thought nonprofits should use AI to improve privacy and security. So essentially what they're saying is, trust. They want to know, because one of the biggest reasons donors don't give to a nonprofit is they don't believe the money will go to where they say it's going to go. So they're saying, use AI to help me trust you more. And it's like pretty amazing. And then I did many webinars after that, and we did polls in the Zooms, and we thought fundraisers would be fun. Like, fundraisers, how do you think donors want you to use AI? So we asked fundraisers the exact same question, and they thought donors would respond saying, well, to like personalize my outreach and to, make my relationship stronger with the organization, and it in that way of like personalization. And that was actually the last thing that donors actually want. So it was also very clear in the report that donors felt that disclosures of AI were important as well. And so this is actually pretty, I don't know, not very popular when Sherry and I came out with this, because most organizations are using AI, but they're not disclosing any of it. Mm-hmm. And, our recommendation would be like, look, donors have told us that you should disclose. And it could be as easy as like on your website, like, we use AI to increase and enhance the donor experience, right? And not do it in a way where every solicitation, because I think what fundraisers thought is like, well, in every solicitation, I'm going to have to say, hey, by the way, this case for support was drafted, in part with generative AI. And that's not at all what we were saying. But, if there were things that were completely like copy paste, and we don't recommend that at all, like always have human in the loop. Mm-hmm. But, to have some sort of disclosures on your website to say, look, we use AI to enhance your donor experience. And I even on my own personal website have a disclosure that says, even on my website, use generative AI to increase content to make it more readable, so you don't have to look at all the typos that it would have been if it was just me. So, I think that's where we're at. I think every organization has to wrestle with what's right for them. I think when we move into a new world of like autonomous AI, so like agentic AI, autonomous decision making, that's very, very different. Where you have like a bot that's actually going to a donor on its own and asking for money, which I know you're familiar with, and I've dedicated a few podcasts to. And in that case, they're actually disclosing. You have to disclose. If you're not disclosing, autonomous decisions by AI to a donor, then I like absolutely shame on you. I think at the end of the day, we have to, when we talk about trustworthy, ethical AI, it's AI that puts donor at the center of the interaction, the center of the relationship. And if, you've got to ask yourself, like in the truest sense, like, does this thing that I'm doing promote and protect trust? Then I think it's probably a pretty good thing if the donor's at the center. And if the donor's not at the center of that, you haven't asked them and you haven't disclosed it, then that's going to lead to a lot of unintended consequences long term.
Mm-hmm. So perfect. We've talked about generative AI. We've talked about predictive AI, and now you've taken us into agentic or autonomous AI, which is fantastic. So what specific tasks do you think autonomous fundraising is well suited for? And maybe if you've got a success story you're aware of, and then the flip side of that coin, are you aware of scenarios, without naming any names, of course, where it has gone wrong?
Yeah. Agentic AI is new. So this is what's crazy about the pace of innovation. I mean, in November 30th, 2022, so what is it, 2025 right now? So like 3 years ago, that's when ChatGPT came out. And, we went from a GPT that could like write a poem about your dog having a picnic on the moon, and it was funny, or like a rap song about your coworker, which we all did. And it was kitschy and kind of novel, but it wasn't useful and hallucinated a lot and whatever. So, 3 years go by, and just so everyone's aware, like agentic AI, which is essentially AI agents. And it's so funny because every time I'm at a dinner table with people I don't know, I'm like, do you know what agentic AI is? And 99% of the world never even heard the word. So like agentic AI is also called AI agents, but essentially it's where an AI is allowed to create more AI its own. So it's a supervisor AI that can create as many workers as it needs, and those workers can take action. And so it's just a more efficient version of like a generative AI that has to work sequentially into like, if you give it a complex task, it will start at the top and it will work sequentially down, all through 12 different tasks. You go to Siri, it can only do one task at a time. But like generative AI can do many. It's inefficient. It has to work, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Well, agentic AI doesn't have to play by those rules. The supervisor says, I want all these workers. These 5 workers can all work at the same time because there's no dependencies there. And then 3 of the workers, you have to wait because there's a prerequisite for one of the other workers to get your thing, and then it does this thing. So all that to say is like a lot more stuff is going on, data flowing in and out. There's a lot of security issues with agentic AI. In fact, Sam Altman yesterday, they released their ChatGPT agent to the world. It's been out for a little while. It's illegal in Europe, by the way. It's been out for 6 months, and it came out to the public yesterday. And even Sam was like, people should not use this in any way that they don't know it's like fully secure, because all of a sudden you've got AI agents just like taking action on your behalf. And it's like, what could go wrong? Like a lot. In fundraising, though, you can see the value of agentic AI in some like really specific use cases. And we're like barely scratching the surface. So like Dataro just released an agent that in the prospect research side. So like, I mean, I know prospect researchers will hate this, but like, it's no longer acceptable to spend 4 hours to research a person, to like have a bio written, because even like a generative AI with deep research can do far better than an average person could do even in 4 hours. And so a workflow would be like, an agent would be like, okay, research all the people in my local community that might be good target for our organization. Okay, what is your organization? This is what we do, and these are what our typical donors look like. Okay, I'm going to go source the world and go find this information, pull it back. But the agent won't stop there and give you dossiers. It will say, okay, well, I'm going to create an automated workflow that says, I'm going to put these people into a portfolio, and these other people I'm going to recommend for a mail campaign. And the mail campaign will craft individual messages for each person based on their unique data. And then ideally, there's basically like moments in agentic AI where you can create deliberate like pauses and stops where humans are needed. The risk is if you bypass those, right? But in most cases, it'd be like, okay, then I'm going to create this thing. And it's like, I'm going to tee up the email so that you can hit send. And so that's where the human is in the loop, where it's like, okay, I'm going to review these and make sure like, yes, this is appropriate treatment for these people and it's not whatever. The risk is that you can bypass this step easily, literally just by like deleting it in the workflow. And it just looks like agentic AI looks like a workflow. Like you literally, it's like, I'm going to do this. And there's like a couple of things underneath it. And then when that's done, I'm going to go to this and a couple of things underneath it. And it just keeps on going through. And you have to make sure that you're building deliberate, opportunities for humans to be in the loop. So, anything that's routine. So basically, when we're talking about like effective use cases, anything that you do more than once, like it's just, agents are going to be able to do this, much faster. I'm still pretty skeptical of agents, not because they don't work, because of the security risks. And so, we operate in the currency of trust. Trust has to be at the forefront of everything we do. We have to say no to things that, even though the world's moving forward at a dizzying pace, like there are times where we have to say no because it doesn't promote and protect trust. So until you know that you can do that and everything is, totally safe and secure, then stop. The end, is essentially people using agents to ask people for money directly without any human in the loop. And there's lots of reasons why financially this makes sense, from an economic perspective. Like fundraisers are expensive and they, get sick and they don't like to make their phone calls and they lie about their metrics and all those things. Never, right?
Not our listeners.
Right. But, at the end of the day, I really believe in the sanctity of, human to human fundraising. I think we can augment work by, telling stories in new and novel ways through agents and through autonomous, bots. But, the brain science is still showing, until we evolve into the next level of humans, that your brain will not reward an interaction between a person and a bot. that, one of the big private company, Klarna, the other day, they had outsourced all their customer service to bots about 1.5 years, 2 years ago. And they actually just stopped all of that program. And the CEO came back with a statement that said, a bot can the bot can give you information, but only a human can help you feel heard. And so I think at the end of the day, when people are seeking to invest both emotionally and financially into an organization, they want to feel heard, right? They want to feel that they belong to something. A bot that is just essentially following orders is literally by definition a transaction. It's no bearing whether it's successful or not. It's just taking orders and following on those orders. And so there's almost no way a person will feel heard from that, even if they speak to the bot and have a conversation. There's no reciprocal, and our brain will not reward that. Our brain will treat it like as if it's like watching TV.
So we don't get that dopamine rush. We don't get all of those physical and emotional kinds of rewards that we
the dopamine and serotonin, that come from like making a gift, but the oxytocin, I think that is rewarded when you actually have empathy for something, or it could be an animal or whatever. There's what empathy am I going to have for a bot, right? And so there's this oxytocin. So that's the foundational, chemistry of a relationship. And so, I think there's a great risk. The risk is that bots are going to be really good at this, and they can deliver short-term value like in spades because they don't get sick and they're very inexpensive and they can do all the things. But at the end of the day, I think while they can deliver short-term results, the long-term implications to our sector will be pretty catastrophic if that continues to really grow. And that's my own personal bias on all of that. So,
well, a very educated personal bias for sure.
I do come from the sector. So, a lot of that sentiment is not even me as a technologist. It's me as a fundraiser and a fundraising leader, someone that I believe that every person in philanthropy has to hold the mantle of being a guardian of philanthropy. And so it comes more from that than it does, even from a technological perspective.
Yeah. And that's the big heart I was talking about when I introduced you, for sure. Nathan, how sophisticated do you think autonomous fundraising will become in the next 5 to 10 years?
Insanely powerful. Also Sam Altman, which I hate quoting because he's increasingly becoming my person that I don't trust as much, but they're really great tools. And there's reasons for it, but he had a statement the other day, which I don't think is rhetoric. I firmly believe that he said the next 5 years, there will be more change than we've experienced in the last 50 combined. And so, we are in the baby steps of AI right now. Like we have literally tiny little baby AI, but AI is considered an exponential technology, which means it's different than any technology humans have ever created since the beginning of mankind. We've never developed a technology that improves itself, right? So, fire still works the same way as it did. Electricity still works the same. Physics are still the same with air traffic control. The reality is, or with air traffic travel, the reality is that AI, even in the last 3 years, the reason why we go from writing a poem about your dog having a picnic on the moon to agentic AI and autonomous fundraisers is because that technology on its own, guided by some humans, but not programmed by humans, it was able to exponentially evolve. And that means by not even 5 years. So predictions are by the end of 2027, and there's some really, really calculated predictions on this that we end up in the information explosion. That basically right now knowledge doubles in the world every 12 hours. So knowledge doubles. It's just insane about how much information. And at this pace, and in the end of 2027's information explosion, we get into close to probably augmented or artificial general intelligence, AGI. And then, then we have to rethink a lot of things. And we're already seeing some of this. AI that's replacing certain jobs, and we're finding new jobs and things like that. So we're already dealing with that. But I think the exponential will continue. There's really no reason it won't. In fact, there's a website called AI 2027. It's AI2027.com. I encourage people to read it, but not before bed like I did, because it was
sleep.
it was literally a sleepless night, because it ends kind of with a choose your own adventure of either let's just go and keep on going, or let's slow down. And then you can click on one of two buttons and then explore why that is or isn't a possibility. And so, I think the next 3 years are going to be like just the information explosion will be here. 5 years, we're just talking about like massive leaps in what we do, versus like even have to like type things, just versus being able to just, we even at Virtuous think about what this means for the future of our CRM. I mean, in 5 years, the CRM doesn't look anything like it does today. Like all my data needs to be somewhere, and I need to be able to interact with it by like talking on my ear pods and be like, send me a list of all the donors that I need to blah, 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 or whatever it might be. And all of that information is just readily available for you at any point. But you don't need to log into the screen and do all this stuff and like run queries and segmentations. Like that's just ridiculous.
Amazing. Before we transition into kind of our wrap up, what's your best advice for our listeners right now as they, wherever they are, whether they have been early adopters and they're really leaning into AI and working to balance it with, being human-centered and data-informed, AI augmented, or whether it's someone who's maybe playing around with generative AI, right? They have a free version of ChatGPT.
Right.
What's your best advice for the broad audience in terms of how to set themselves up and their organizations up for success?
Yeah, I think it will sound counterintuitive, but I would say, knowing that we are already in the kind of this information explosion, that's just like so much distraction and competition for your brain, is the number one thing is just to create some space to think. And the reality is, I believe this is an opportunity where we can see an enormous like explosion of good ideas supporting generosity if we're willing to sit and think about what are the pain points and not think about what the limitations have been in the past. The rules have all been broken. What is not possible is now entirely plausible. And if we don't give ourselves the brain space to think about, like, is this thing possible? Mallory Erickson's a great example. Not a technologist at all, but she believed that, the fundraising kind of system is broken in the sense of like, there's just a lot of fear that goes into fundraising. So what if there could be a tool that can help support that at scale? And so she developed Practivated. I think, in fact, I was talking to Mallory today. I think what's sad for me right now is there should be like hundreds of Mallorys in the sector thinking about anything's possible, because she does not know how to code. She can use her cell phone pretty well, but she's smart and she can bring people together. And so I think that's what people should do. I think they should, they should create some space, and it's going to feel weird, but that you like put down the cell phone, get out an old school notebook, and every day habitually create 30 minutes of space to think about what are the things that I don't like doing? What are the opportunities to like shake things up and get curious? I mean, I do a lot of speaking on curiosity, and I just think it's like the single most important human trait, something that we're all born with, but we lose over time. And I think when you have a tool that knows something about everything, that curiosity wins the game. And so, yeah, I think I know it's not a technical answer. It's not like, log into ChatGPT right now, but that would be phase 2. Phase 1 is like create the space and be curious.
Yeah. Find that pain point, find the problem that you want solved. What do you not want to do? Yeah. And then reach for AI.
Yeah. And we need hundreds, we need thousands of Mallory Ericksons right now.
Yeah, I agree. She's incredible. And Practivated is definitely a product that we're going to be incorporating into many of our trainings at
That's awesome.
Fundraising Transformed and Modern ICG for sure. Yeah. Incredible. And such a great example of what you're talking about. All right. Nathan, I think I gave you a heads up. We like to ask some rapid fire questions at the end of each episode. All right. What's the best fundraising advice you've ever received?
See things from the eyes of your leader, I think, was when my first coach, when I was an executive director, I had a guy who ran New York Life. And he said the secret to success is really seeing things through the eyes of your leader. So I think as a fundraiser, I think that is really powerful. It applies to seeing things through the eyes of your donors as well.
Love that. What book do you recommend to our audience and why?
Oh my gosh. Other than your new book that's coming out, everyone needs to read that for sure.
Thank you,
Um,
Nathan.
yeah, I'm asked this question a lot, and I go back and forth. I mean, probably if I was going to read one book on AI around, let's keep it to AI right now, it would be Ethan Mollick's book called Co-Intelligence. I think it does a great job of kind of demystifying what AI is and where it's going.
Awesome. What are the 3 most important traits a successful fundraiser must possess?
Oh my gosh. These are not easy questions. These are hard questions. So um, I would say, in terms of the people that I've hired that I thought were really successful at what they did, I would say integrity has to be at the very top. I would say being self-driven, like number 2. Like, I mean, that fundraising is a very lonely job and you have to be really self-driven. And then I think grit, you have to like just get back up every single time. So we'll go with those.
Those are 3 great ones. And in fact, Jerry Panis's answer to that question, number 1 trait, integrity.
Oh, nice. Look at that.
Same as you. What's your favorite fundraising application or tool?
Of course, Virtuous. So, I mean, honestly, I've been a fan of Virtuous for 10 years because I had gone through a couple really big conversions that I'm still going through therapy for. So I became a fan probably around 7 years ago because it represented something very different. So all, kidding aside, actually, I think Virtuous has the best view of the future of fundraising and how it's, data is not collected to be collected, but it's collected so that it could be put to work. And so for us to build fully predictive, generative, and agentic tools inside of CRM, I think it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it is pretty awesome. It's impressive. What's your favorite conference and why?
I just came back from AI for Good in Geneva, and it's got to be my favorite. It's not a fundraising conference. It is all about using AI for good, obviously, as the name says, but it's also in Geneva. So even if it sucked, it actually would still be probably my favorite conference.
Amazing. Well, when they ask you for referrals for speakers, remember your friends.
Right.
Last question. Knowing what you know now about fundraising, what advice would you give your younger self just getting started in the profession?
If the advice was given today, I would say believe anything is possible, because I absolutely believe that it is.
That's almost a mic drop. Actually, that is a mic drop.
It's not meant to be, but I think I would give that to my younger self today. Anything is possible.
Amazing. Nathan, thank you. Thanks for joining us today and blowing our minds.
It's great to be here. I have such love for you and what you do and the community that you built. So anything that I can, align with you on is fantastic. So it's always a pleasure.
Thank you. And it's really my pleasure. I'm in awe and so grateful to call you a friend. All right. So listeners, don't miss the premier gathering for nonprofit innovators, fundraisers, and forward thinkers. The Fundraising AI Global Summit, which, as we shared, is coming back this fall. It is a powerful opportunity to learn from leading experts like Nathan, like Cherian, like Scott, those that we've been talking about today, and to connect with peers and explore and be curious about how AI is shaping the future of fundraising and generosity. Whether you're just getting started or you're already putting AI to work, this summit is designed to really help you cut through the hype and conquer the resistance and leverage technology to do even more good in the world. So we will definitely put a link in the show notes. I want you all to go and register and block your calendars. It'll be worth it. If you want to get your very own copy of Nonprofit AI, a comprehensive guide to implementing AI for social good, there are links in the show notes. If you want to learn more about the free online global summit, again, there'll be links there. If you want to learn more about the Fundraising AI framework for responsible and beneficial use of AI, we'll have those links in the show notes. If you want to learn more about Virtuous or connect with Nathan on LinkedIn, or if you want to learn more about any of the resources we've discussed today, check out the links in the show notes. And with that, I just want to thank you for joining us for this episode of the Intentional Fundraiser podcast. Keep on transforming your fundraising so you can transform the world. Bye for now.
The Intentional Fundraiser podcast is a Fundraising Transformed original. I'm Trent Thompson, executive producer, CMO, and head of community at Fundraising Transformed and the Modern Institute for Charitable Giving. The Intentional Fundraiser podcast has been recognized by FeedSpot as one of the top 80 fundraising podcasts on the web. This recognition means so much to us, and it wouldn't be possible without your incredible support, encouragement, and thoughtful engagement. Every listen, share, and conversation has helped us grow and reach more passionate fundraisers like you. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to review and rate it 5 stars on Apple Podcasts, and be sure to follow or subscribe wherever you listen. For resources mentioned in this episode and to subscribe to our Scaling Major Gifts newsletter, visit fundraisingtransformed.com.